Good day, and welcome to another unboxing. In this video, I will unbox my hardcover and softcover proofs from Ingram Spark, which were printed in October of 2020, and give a brief critique of their quality and some comparison to professionally published books distributed by publishing houses. I'd like to mention that Ingram Spark has made some changes to their options and offerings since the last time I ordered books from them, and I will display these changes in the video. I am an author-illustrator who self-publishes, and this is my 7th fantasy novel that I have published, the 3rd that I have published via Ingram Spark. Of course, I have bunches of others in both complete and abandoned form that served as practice, or that I have not elected to make available for distribution. I've also published a children's book using Ingram Spark. If you are curious about what sort of options are available for that genre, I have made other videos about it. The 3rd book in my current fantasy series is called Hearthsraven, and I am keeping to the pattern I set with the previous 2, and am releasing a softcover, hardcover, and an ebook. I find in general that I like Ingram Spark's quality, but unfortunately their books cost quite a lot. I release a hardcover which ends up costing in the $30 range, sort of as a deluxe edition should anyone really like the book and want something fancy on their shelf, and then try to make a softcover as low priced as absolutely possible. To do this, I reduce the trim size, font size, tracking, and margins to try to reduce the overall page count and thus make the book cheaper. Unfortunately, all those things can make the book harder to read too. For both hardcover and softcover, I reduce my royalty per book down to about 25 cents, so I make next to nothing on my books, but making money has never been my objective in sharing my work. It does discourage me, though, that the books cost so much through Ingram Spark. I can keep the cost of the ebook low, however. So, to begin with the unboxing, I have the 2 proofs here received in the mail, the softcover and the hardcover. There are actually 2 hardcovers in this package because I ordered one for a friend who likes my stuff. Starting with the softcover, I'll need to cut through the label that's been put over the perforations in the cardboard and rip it open. For those who are curious, I make my books entirely by myself. I write them, edit them, do the layout and design, and make black and white illustrations for the interior, and do the covers myself. The benefit of that is that I can do exactly what I want within my own abilities. The downside, of course, is that a second pair of eyes might catch errors or give useful suggestions, and if I do make any mistakes, I take all responsibility. So this one was packaged well, no dents. My softcovers have a trim size of 5 by 7. The spine thickness depends on how many pages the book has. Hearthsraven ended up a bit longer than my previous 2 books. I order matte finish on my covers, which feels a bit softer and more velvety than a slick, glossy cover. I don't know if that's a good thing. To each their own. Once I have a proof, I look it over, make sure all the pages from my PDF are there at the beginning and the end, that everything is centered properly, nothing running off the edge of the page, and my illustrations came through with full resolution. Honestly, as long as I've made a good PDF, I've never had trouble with Ingram Spark screwing up my books. Usually, any mistakes are all my fault. I did get a few of my children's books where the book block was put in upside down, which was certainly unfortunate, but that's never happened with my novels. One thing I have learned with my softcovers is to nudge the text blocks out away from the gutter. Despite what Ingram Spark's guidelines say, if I don't disobey and push the text closer to the edge of the page, it tends to get really close and deep into the gutter. So I nudge it out about 1/4 inch. One of the changes Ingram Spark has made since I last set up a book is to offer a new paper quality for the interior. They call it groundwood, and it is a lighter weight paper than they have offered before, closer to that used in a mass market paperback. They call the color eggshell, and it's 38 pound instead of 50 pound. I did a sample calculation for the price difference and found, for example, a 400-page softcover shipped to my location cost me, the author, $12.81. Regardless of whether I use the 50 pound or 38 pound paper, so using groundwood does not appear to make a book cheaper, even though one would think a lower quality paper would be less expensive. However, the thinner paper should make your book thinner. So if I compare my new Hearthsraven softcover made with the groundwood paper to a softcover I had printed a few years ago made with Ingram Spark's 50-pound cream-colored paper, I can see that there is a difference. The groundwood paper is a bit duller in color and does feel a bit lighter weight, but I don't see a huge difference. It is not nearly as thin as publishers used to use a couple decades ago to print trade paperbacks. If I compare it to a recently published book by a major publishing house, in this case Ace, it does feel closer to what they are using than it does to the 50-pound cream from Ingram Spark. Although I think Ingram Spark's groundwood is still a tiny bit thicker than what Ace is using. In paper color, maybe groundwood is a bit brighter, but it's really hard for me to tell the difference, especially depending on lighting and the angle of the page. I don't think the cream, groundwood, and whatever Ace is using are much different. I have never ordered the white 50-pound paper from Ingram Spark in my novels, so I can't compare the difference between these and that one. I chose cream in the past because I thought it would be warmer and less stark. Looking at the cover, I try to keep consistency with the previous books in the series, as anyone would, using the same art style, fonts, and layout. I noticed that on previous books in the series, I flipped the title on the spine in the direction that is less common, and someone pointed out that it might dismay people browsing bookshelves because they'd then have to flip their head the other way. I don't turn my head sideways when reading book titles, so I never thought of that. But if lots of people do, maybe I should turn my spine text the other way. So I did on this one, thinking I'll go back and fix all the other ones. Or maybe I should have left this one the other way to match books 1 and 2. I don't know. Now I've created a quandary for myself. I also changed the size of my dingbat on the spine, which maybe I shouldn't have done either. Do I care enough to fix it? I don't know. This is one reason my books aren't very successful. I'd much rather write more stories than spend time fixing marketing details like these. Okay, a note about ISBNs. Ingram Spark has started offering ISBNs to its self-publishers. You need an ISBN when publishing, and a company called Bowkers assigns ISBNs. You could always buy your own, but now Ingram Spark will give you one instead if you want. They are also producing an ISBN barcode that appears in your cover template, saving you having to go and get one yourself. I still buy my own ISBNs. I like having my name as the publisher. Yes, it costs money, but I can afford it, as in addition to making books, which makes me next to no money, I am gainfully employed elsewhere. Should you buy your own ISBNs? Well, they can be pricey. If you're just publishing a single book for fun or whatever, maybe it's not worth it. Just let Ingram Spark give you one. But if you're going to be publishing a lot of your own books and making a name for yourself as an author, to me it's worth it to buy a pack of 10 or more if you're going to publish more books. I initially bought a pack of 10 and I have exhausted all of my ISBN codes, so now I have to buy more. But that way I have all of my books under my name as the publisher forever. I do, however, love it that Ingram Spark is making my barcode for me, as it saves me a step of having to go and get my own EPS file generated. I have noticed on this softcover that the fold of the spine feels different. It's bumpier, like there's a big ridge there. I don't know if that's because this book is thicker, or if they changed their folding machine, but I don't like it as much as the old way. Overall, I'm satisfied with the proof, although I notice that my text isn't exactly centered on the front. The spine seems centered and I'm fine with the back, but the front is a little off. This could be because of where I put it when I built the PDF. But it could also be because the cover shifted a little when it was pasted on or trimmed, which would mean that my spine text is in the wrong spot. You have to expect a 1/4 inch of variance in everything, depending on where things get trimmed. That's why you have a bleed. But I might want to revisit my cover PDF just to make sure that this wasn't my error and decide if I want to fix it. Because I know I should probably fix it. So that's the soft cover. Moving on to the hardcover, I will unbox it. As I mentioned, there are 2 hardcovers in here. One is for a friend. I'll again cut through the label. Make sure you don't cut your books doing this. My hardcovers I made with a dust jacket, which is a different template from the paperback cover, although the art I used the same for both. So text elements and all of that will be in slightly different locations. Of course, I have to make a separate PDF for the book block as well, because the hardcover will have a slightly different layout, different dimensions, different page count, larger font, tracking, all of that. Again, I am noticing right off that my cover text is not centered on the front. The spine text looks mostly centered, and again, I flipped it to conform to what is more standard, but that probably just created more problems for me than it solved. Here I'm comparing it to book 2 of my series. The back looks okay. Maybe this text is a little close to the edge. Again, Ingram Spark provided me with a barcode, thank you, but I used my own ISBN code that I own. And I moved a few elements around compared to book 2, but that's all fine with me. They are where I want them. The dust jacket, it comes with 2 flaps, one in the front, one in the back. I learned my lesson from a previous book not to make a hard line or division in the image between cover and flap, because the 1/4 inch variance in how they trim it means the cover can get shifted a bit when getting trimmed, left, right, up, down. That's why there's a bleed. So I am making sure my image wraps a good distance around, and I made the transition between the front and the flap soft. I use my front flap for a bit about the book or an excerpt from the book, and the back flap for about the author, which seems pretty standard from professional examples I looked at, though I'm sure there are exceptions. For the book cover inside the dust jacket, which I think can be called the case, I chose the gray cover, which I have chosen for all the books in this series. There is also currently the option of blue, which I don't have an example of, or no dust jacket with your cover just laminated onto the case, or both, with your cover laminated on and a dust jacket on top of that. Ingram Spark recently made a change where they are no longer printing the cover with actual cloth. Now they just print the cover to look like cloth. They call it digital cloth. So comparing my old book 2 with the actual cloth to the current printed like cloth, digital cloth, you can see that the color is different, and the texture is different, of course. I don't really like this change. It feels cheap to me because they are faking the cloth. I'd rather they just printed a solid color if they aren't going to use real cloth anymore. Comparing the spines, I see I put my name in different places on my book 2 versus book 3. That might need correcting. Obviously, the text is no longer embossed on book 3, the printed version. It's just printed in a sort of gold color. Because it looks so cheap to me in comparison, I might do the option of having my cover printed on the case and then having a matching dust jacket next time, except it would break the pattern with the rest of the series. But this is all cosmetic. What's in the book block is really what matters. For the ISBN on the back of the case, or back of the book, it used to be a sticker on the cloth. Now it is printed on the case along with the digital cloth and golden text on the spine. So let's look at the inside. I do apologize for my camera doing all this refocusing. It certainly is annoying, and I didn't know it was doing it while I was filming. I'm sure it thinks it's being helpful. The inside looks good. I'm not counting the pages yet, but it looks like everything is centered, nothing's running off the edge. My little section break dingbat printed nice too. The interior illustrations look to be full resolution, as they should be, provided I made my PDF correctly. At the end is the ISBN and other info Ingram Spark adds to the back of all their books, and a nice heavy-duty final page. Comparing the interior to book 2, they should be pretty identical. I chose the 50-pound cream paper for both, and indeed they feel and look exactly the same. Compared to a professionally printed book I bought just a month ago, the Ingram Spark paper feels slightly thicker and is perhaps a tiny bit whiter, but in color they are almost identical. Comparing the covers, Ace is not messing about with pretending their cover has cloth on it, it's just solid black, which I like. They do have much fancier embossing on the spine, which I envy. I did note as well that they chose matte finish for their dust jacket, not gloss, just like I did. Returning to the interior of my book, I am noting that the gutter is almost eating my text. This didn't seem such a big issue in my previous hardcovers, but maybe I want to nudge the text blocks towards the outer edge of the pages again, like I do with my softcover. I did follow the guidelines provided by Ingram Spark for what they think is good margins, but maybe I am disagreeing with those guidelines. So that's the interior. Everything seems to be mostly in order. I will proofread the books again because no matter how many times I proofread, I always seem to find another typo, and need to consider the text placement on the front cover and maybe on the spines as well. But overall, they are certainly readable and I think a good addition to my current series. I don't have a hardcover handy for book 1, so I'll lay them out in order with a soft cover for book 1. Oh, and I forgot to do this, so I'll do it now. My hardcovers are 6x9. That's the trim size of the book block. The cover itself is a bit bigger. That's pretty much it for this unboxing and review of Ingram Spark quality as of October 2020. I do plan to continue using Ingram Spark for now at least. If you're still watching and you're curious, I can tell you that my book series is called the North Nest Saga. I'm 3 books in, but the 4th is written in first draft form, and ideas are flowing for the 5th, possibly also a 6th. I'm also going to be self-publishing a collection of short stories from the world, hopefully before the end of 2020, as it is mostly finished. I'm pretty terrible at self-promotion, but I can tell you that the books cover the adventures of various humans and griffins and fawns and unicorns from a vaguely medieval sort of non-Earth world with magic and, as mentioned, other intelligent species. My griffins and fawns and unicorns are not mindless beasts, but people in their own right, with their own societies, goals, and conflicts. There is very little religion of any kind, no electricity or advanced technologies, but it is a world with Earth-like climates, terrain, and flora and fauna. Because it is not Earth, however, the human races are different and distributed differently, and the countries are different with their own histories and conflicts and politics. My leading characters tend to be female, of various species, but I think I have a lot of great supporting male characters as well, also in various species. I like to write a wide variety of characters with diverse origins and objectives, as that creates more opportunity for interesting interactions and conflicts. As they say, only trouble is interesting. Mostly my stories are adventure tales, often featuring coming-of-age themes, with sometimes a little romance and sometimes a little horror mixed in. Books 1 and 2 are pretty PG-13, but book 3 does fall into R territory. I like to ground whatever I can in a sort of historical accuracy, though these stories do not take place on Earth, but as far as food, dress, technology, and so on, of a vaguely medieval era in this world. I also try to include biological accuracy for my non-human fantasy characters as much as possible, drawing from the biology of birds and other Earth animals. I've been told my books are not bad, and I've been told they're fantastic, and other things in between those extremes. I'm a pretty harsh critic of both myself and other books I read, and I am aiming to write books of quality that I would enjoy reading myself. If you have any interest in my books, I can direct you to inkit.com, where I have the first one uploaded in its entirety, and you can read the whole thing for free. Mainly, I just like my stories to reach people who might enjoy them, because there is little else better than a book you like. Thanks for watching. I hope some of this was useful for you, and good writing to you all.